Hi folks, I've come on today just to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. Now I know it's not a regular Christmas and we're all hunkered down in different parts of the world, but just want to wish you all the best and hope you're making the most of it and have a great day today. Just in case you don't believe me that it is Christmas Day, let me just get my iPad out. Look, December the 25th. This isn't like the Queen's speech, this isn't recorded months in advance. Now of course, being Christmas Day, I'll try and do this in one take because there's lots of other things to do, so don't be expecting much quality from today's video. And it's also the only day of the year you can really drink very cheap Scottish beer at 10:30 in the morning. Cheers to you all. Now what I thought I would do today, just to wrap it up, is to go into my little travel notebook and go through some of the questions that my subscribers have sent. Thank you so much guys for all the support this year. So let's start with a question from Jenny A. Hi Jenny. Hi Steve, I'm so enjoying travelling with you from the comfort of my living room. How did you get into doing these videos and which was the first? Great question Jenny, and sorry I haven't really prepared any answers in advance, but my first video would have been in August of 2019 I think, and that was a flight from Aberdeen up to Kirkwall in Orkney with Loganair. Now that was a great little flight to start, even though as soon as I started the camera rolling the very first time I'm trying to make a YouTube video, I was just walking into the terminal building and a cop stopped me to say, "Why are you filming?" So that was a great start to my YouTube career. I said I was doing it for YouTube even though I had no videos up at the time, so yes. Anyway, so why did I start YouTube? I don't watch much TV, so I tend to watch a lot of YouTube and things that I'm interested in like travel. And it was just, I thought I would do it as a personal journal more than anything. And if anyone actually watched my videos, then that was really just a bonus. So that's kind of why I started. And the first few videos, if you look back at my early videos, the quality wasn't great, but it's a bit of a creative outlet. And I just like to try and improve as I go along. And I hope you can see that kind of progression in the year and a half that I have been putting content on YouTube. So move on to a question now from Susan Ward. You seem to be very knowledgeable about different types of planes and trains. Do you work in the travel industry in some way, or is it your hobby? Don't stop speaking to cats. Susan, I'll never stop speaking to cats. Now the travel industry, yes, I worked for Thomas Cook and American Express Business Travel, but that was about 25 years ago and I haven't actually gained much knowledge from that time. It's just the case that I love travel. I went over to New Zealand for a year when I was in my early 20s, before it was really fashionable to do these kind of trips. And I just got the travel bug there and I've enjoyed it ever since. And I guess things that you really enjoy, you just pick up all that as you go along. But I'm not going to lie, I do use Google and do a wee bit of research before I go on my trips, so maybe I appear a wee bit more knowledgeable than I actually am. Thanks for that, Susan. And move on to a question now from Alicia. Would be nice to hear about your experience with Highland cows. Can they be dangerous and are you scared of them? I think Highland cows are so cool. Now every time I've encountered them, it's normally just when I'm driving on the side of the road and they're just wandering along. They're so calm and placid, and I always get out the car and have a wee chat with them. But I have heard actually that regular cows have been dangerous recently. I've seen some news reports from the Pentland Hills. I actually did a video in the Pentland Hills not that long ago where runners are getting attacked by cows. I've never heard of this before, but now I'm a wee bit more cautious around cows. But Highland cows, they've always been super cool with me, so thanks for that question. Okay, so the next question is from BLBL8326. What made you start vlogging? What program do you use to edit your videos? What are your travel plans after lockdown? Are all your trips work related? Would you choose to become a full-time vlogger? And 5 less known foods from Scotland. Wow, a lot of questions there, let me try and work through them. Now the first one, what made you start vlogging? I think I answered that in my first question, but really just a creative outlet. I used to take a lot of photographs but didn't do anything with them, so I thought video and get them on YouTube, that was the next step, and yeah, that's pretty much it. What program do you use to edit your videos? I just use iMovie on my iMac. It's a really basic program to use, very easy to use as well. And I just don't like learning new stuff, so it does the job for me just now. Who knows, one day I might move on and use something else, but for now it really does the job. It's everything that I need. What are your travel plans after lockdown? Well, I had a couple of trips booked. I had one to Svalbard, which would have been the furthest north I've ever been. That was one I was really excited about. There was about 5 or 6 flights on that trip and I had to cancel them all. So yeah, after lockdown, that would be the first thing I would do. But I've also really enjoyed being able to travel around Scotland and learn more about my own country. So I'd like to see some more of the other home nations, get back down to England. I've never been to Wales and I've never got the ferry across to Northern Ireland, so that's another one. So that's what we'd like to do next. Are all of your trips work related? I'm afraid not. It's just a hobby, so all the time and all the money that goes into it, it's all from my own pocket. Would you choose to become a full-time vlogger? Wow, yeah, who wouldn't love to do that? But I think you have to, as well as being really good, you have to be a bit lucky as well to be able to do that. So, of course, yeah, if that opportunity arose, I would jump at it, but I don't think it's as easy as that for me, and I don't think it will happen, to be honest. 5 less known foods from Scotland. Wow, there's a question. Let me think. Well, the first thing I'd say about food from Scotland is we have a reputation for unhealthy food, but I would put as number 1 our seafood. Our seafood is world renowned. It is amazing. So trout, salmon, lobster, even mussels, absolutely top quality. So that's a healthy thing. But let's think of something else. I would say pies. We put absolutely anything in a pie. Pasta, meat, curry, meat and potato, haggis, neeps and tatties, anything you can think of, we'll stick it in a pie. So that would be number 2. Number 3, tatties. Good old potatoes. Tatty soup, tatty scones, anything with tatties in it. Really basic recipes. I'm really struggling now to think of anything else. Is there a thing called bannocks? I'm sure I had these in Shetland. It was kind of like a savoury scone. So not a sweet scone, but a savoury scone. And I've only ever tried those in Shetland. I'm not sure if they're from Shetland, so maybe someone can comment below and let me know. What else? We do like our breakfast. We do like a square sausage. A Lorne sausage, have you ever heard of those? I think that's a very Scottish thing. I don't think they have that anywhere else in the UK. And also things like puddings as well. Black puddings, white puddings. Now black puddings, that's like blood pudding. White pudding is kind of like oats and barley mixed with lard. So yeah, back to unhealthy Scotland. Is that 5? I think that's 5. I think that's covered it. That's all I can think of at the moment. I'm sure there's loads of other things. But anyway, yeah, there we go. Thanks very much for that question. Okay, we'll move on to a question from Jack Shaw. Top 3 less known places to visit in Scotland. Great question, Jack. Before the North Coast 500 became famous, that's what I would have said, because people just didn't go north of Inverness before. But that's a very different story now. But I would still say it's the places that are difficult to get to, where you have to put a wee bit more effort in. Now, just off of the North Coast 500, there's a couple of mountains that I really love. Which are Sylvan and Stackpolly. Now they're fairly close to each other, and because they're not Munros, maybe they're not as well known as some other mountains in Scotland, but they're 2 of my favourite mountains. They are absolutely beautiful. If you're looking to do some photography, I would really suggest going there. Sylvan was about a 5-hour walk, I can remember. It took a long time to get in there, and Stackpolly is just the formations on the top of that mountain are just so beautiful. So if you want to go up and play around in the mountains, I would really suggest those 2. And it's somewhere I'd love to go back with the camera and do a couple of YouTube videos, because they're absolutely spectacular. Now, where else? Possibly the small isles. So you've got Muck, Egg, Rum and Canna. I think they make up the small isles. They're just fairly near Mallaig actually. I think just south of Mallaig, or maybe in Mallaig itself, you can get the ferry across those islands. Again, they're fairly difficult to get to, but lovely for a day trip. And I'm sure in summer, I've never really been there when they've done these boat trips, but I'm sure you can go out fairly easily. But I would like to spend maybe a week in the small isles. It's just such a beautiful part of the country. Where else can I think of? Maybe Shetland. Now, I know it's a bit more difficult to get up there. It's the overnight ferry from Aberdeen. There is a video on my channel from that one. But Shetland is just so unlike anywhere else in Scotland. It's got, to me, it's got a real kind of Scandinavian feel to it from its history, I guess. But it's an absolutely stunning group of islands, and if you ever get the chance to go there, I really recommend it. And I shouldn't really dismiss Orkney either, but I've not really seen enough of Orkney, so I need to get back there. And that's maybe another trip for next year. So thanks for that one. On to a question from James Lee. Since you like going out of the way places, have you ever thought about going to St Kilda or a few other islands around Scotland? I'm not sure how accessible some of them are, so I was just curious. Well, yeah, I absolutely love islands. You might have seen that already from my channel, but I would love to get to some more. There's so many more that I need to see. St Kilda in particular, that is one has always been on my radar, and I've always wanted to go there. It just looks absolutely spectacular. But the problem I've got getting there is that I think you can only get there from the Outer Hebrides or from Skye. So for me to get to these places, and that's just where the ferry to St Kilda goes from, it would take me a good 5 or 6 hours. Now, also you'd need to book it in advance. It'd be a fairly big trip for me. And you could get all the way up to Skye, all the way out to Harris, I think it is that it goes from. And then the trip to St Kilda could be cancelled because of the weather, because you're just going right out into the Atlantic, into the small rock in the Atlantic. So it's a trip I would love to do, but I'm just worried about actually booking it, and then you get all the way up there and you can't actually go to St Kilda. That would be so disappointing. But I can't use that as an excuse. It's somewhere I do want to go to, so I'm just going to have to be lucky and hope that it works out. Thanks very much for that, James. And on to Ken Brieux 2005. Any hidden gems like the chain walk we can do on our next visit with a young adventurous family in Fife and the Lothians? Ooh, that's a really good question. You might have seen my chain walk video. That is one that I just discovered last year. That is a real hidden gem, and there's so few things like that now. It's quite a difficult one to answer. I would say maybe the Isle of May. I don't know if you've been out to the Isle of May. We went there a couple of years ago in around April or May time, and that's when the puffins were there and all the rabbits running around the island. It was absolutely great, and it was a great little boat trip. It was one of those fast ribs that went out from Anstruther. So if you get the chance to do that, especially April, May time, I think that's when the puffins are on land, so they're just great to see. These little fellas, they're so much smaller than I expected. Where else could you go? I would like to do the hills around Loch Leven. Again, they're smaller hills, probably not that impressive, but I just think they look a great walk. And any time I'm going up the motorway from Edinburgh to Aberdeen, I always look over to Loch Leven. It looks so nice with the hills in behind. I would like to go and do those hills, and of course like the Pentland Hills as well, but that's a really tricky question. I think finding hidden gems these days, especially with the internet, is so difficult. But that's one of the great things about Scotland, that you can go pretty much anywhere and have the whole place to yourself, especially when the weather's a wee bit more dodgy. So yeah, I'm sorry I haven't really answered that one that well, but it's very difficult to find hidden gems these days. So next we have a question from Legionnaire Gonk. Are you on hiatus, Steve? Waiting for all of this to ease up? What are your plans for the rest of the year and next year if it doesn't? Great question. Well, I think plans, if it does ease up, would be to get those trips that I had to cancel. I was looking forward to those so much, so that would be the first step. And then thereafter, I just tend to browse online. I look at the ITA matrix on Google for cheap flights, so just anything that comes up, I'll be all over it. And if it doesn't, what I've really found this year is that I've embraced my own country so much more, and I'd obviously like to travel down to England, Wales, across to Ireland. So yeah, I am quite happy to do more Scottish adventures if it doesn't ease up, so maybe doing that before I go long haul again. Next, on to a question from Cat Captain. Do you have any interest in visiting places south of the border? Absolutely, I would love to. Before I started YouTube, we actually went down to Liverpool and we went to see, I think it was Crosby Beach, the Anthony Gormley exhibition. That's the figures that are standing in the sea on the beach, and then the tide comes in right over them. That was superb, but unfortunately that was before I started doing YouTube videos, so I would like to go back there for sure. I would like to get down to Dartmoor in Devon, do the train actually. There's, I think it's called the Cross Country or something. Transpennine Express, I'm sure that's what it is. You get the train that goes all the way from Edinburgh down to Penzance. That's another trip I would love to do. It's something though that I wouldn't want to do with a face mask on because it's quite a long journey, so that'll have to wait until all of this is cleared up. And the Yorkshire coast, that's another place. I've heard so many good things about Yorkshire, and especially on the coast, and I love the coast and the sea, so that would be my first few trips into England. Once that opportunity arises, I will be there, that's for sure. Okay, so move on to a question from Moni, California. So isn't that the coolest screen name when your name, Monica, rolls seamlessly into the place where you live, California. Moni, California, love it. Anyway, amongst other questions from Monica, what has been your favourite place to visit? Now that's a really tricky one to answer, Monica. Difficult because anywhere that we go, I always love it, I always try to embrace it. So maybe that's the answer, maybe it's just anywhere that's new, but that is a bit of a cop-out. So if I had to give you specific places, I really love Malaga on the south coast of Spain. That's somewhere that we really intend to go back to a lot. But probably Newfoundland. We went to St John's a couple of years ago in 2018, that was before I started YouTube, and we did the East Coast Trail there over a couple of weeks, and I absolutely loved that rock in the Atlantic. Some of the friendliest people that I've ever met were from St John's and the rest of that coast around Newfoundland. So I found it quite Scottish as well. It did actually remind me a lot of home, a very Scottish Irish feel to it. That really does stand out as one of the coolest places that I've ever been. And partly because of the challenge of doing the East Coast Trail as well, the weather was all over the place. But you can see all the whales out in the Atlantic, you can see icebergs in the winter, so that's somewhere I would love to go back to, and that is probably going to happen in the next couple of years, and the video camera will be coming with us, so that's what I'm going to say. St John's, Newfoundland. So let's finish up with the most common question I get. What equipment do you use? Now, I don't really invest much in equipment and I keep things pretty basic. So I'm filming this on a Canon 250D, which is like bottom of the range DSLR. One of the reasons I love that camera is because it's so basic and it's small as well. Now I use that with an 18 to 135. I use that with an 18 to 135 lens, which is, I find that really versatile. That's the only lens that I ever carry with me. It's wide enough for most situations if you're in like a small train carriage or something like that, but also gives you a good bit of zoom as well. Now I also use a GoPro. This is a GoPro 8. I love and hate this camera in equal measure. I love it because it just gives really good results and it's totally weatherproof and everything like that. But GoPros, they tend to freeze. Now, I've had a real problem with this, and often you'll just have to take the battery out, put it back in again, and by that time you tend to have missed what you were trying to film. So I've missed so many good bits of footage with this camera, but at the same time, I absolutely love it. It's small, as I say, it's totally weatherproof, it goes everywhere with me and gives some great results. So I really do recommend GoPros, but just be aware that it might freeze from time to time. And my notebook, this is such a beautiful notebook that I've got. Look at that, The Incredible Journey. I take this everywhere with me and it's really old school, but I do recommend having a notebook to capture those thoughts when you're on a trip, because so many times when I haven't taken the notebook, I've come back and I've forgotten so much cool stuff that I would like to talk about in my videos. So go old school with a notebook. And apart from that, I use iMovie for editing. That's really basic, it's really easy to use. I picked that up when I started editing in about a couple of hours, and then you're good to go. So I really do recommend that, even though there's some better programs out there. I use Flight Radar 24 for tracking flights. Again, just as a bit of a flight geek, that's a really good app to use. And I use Epidemic Sound for getting some background music onto my videos. I know there's other ways to do music on videos, but I don't know how to do it, and I find Epidemic has a really good range of music and they make it really simple to do. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Hopefully next year in 2021 we can go on some more incredible journeys together. But for this year, thanks for all your support. Things haven't been easy, but we've got through it. And here's to a much better 2021. Cheers.